Yes, indeed. You are watching or listening to Download This Show. And don't forget, you can tweet along with the show live. Just make sure you use that hashtag Download This Show. If you happen to be listening on SoundCloud or watching on YouTube on RNTV, you can leave a comment in the stream as you're listening. Go ahead, comment away. I'll just give you a sec. Good, now you're done. And it's a very big welcome to this week's panel. He is the editor of CNet Australia, Seamus Byrne. Welcome back.
Hello, good to be back.
And now, thanks to the marvel of YouTube, we can see exactly whose haircut I've been ripping off the past year. And we've got a new addition to the show. She's been a consumer and technology journalist. She's written all over the place, and thanks to a very weird combination of scheduling and some really good hiring on the part of Seamus, she's now also with CNet, the news editor of CNet Australia, Claire Reilly. Welcome to Download This Show.
Thanks for having me on.
Hopefully we don't scare you off too much.
Oh, you'll be fine.
Okie doke. Now, wearable technology. So fitness bracelets, smartwatches is really kind of an area of technology that's still, I would say, in its infancy. I think only 5% of Americans have some form of wearable technology, but seemingly one of the more successful enterprises, Nike's Fuel Band, is no more. We had reports this week, Seamus, that Nike are getting out of the hardware business. They've fired, I think, something in the vicinity of 55 people. Why? It seemed like it was the most successful bit of wearable technology on the market.
Yeah, I think it fits so well with the Nike brand as well. Yeah, the idea of it's a fitness-centric device. Theirs had a really good display, which some of them didn't have. So it was certainly looking quite strong in that sort of competitive space at the moment. But they've pulled the plug. Now, I think a few of the stories around it are, did they overinvest and end up just having to just pull the plug, and they'd spent too much money too quickly on trying to build a market that really kind of just now is starting to kind of emerge this year. And they've clearly been in this for a couple of years already. But then the other big side of that question is, do they know about what's coming next? And they've kind of decided we've already hit a peak and we're not going to be able to compete with the changing state of this whole sort of smartwatch space, which is about to come.
I know we shouldn't go to conspiracy theories so early in the show, but Claire Reilly, let's. There's always been a relationship between Nike and Apple. Does the fact that Nike pulling out of the hardware business suggest that they know that Apple's about to release some kind of crazy wearable device?
One word: shoe phone. That's my bet. If I could put it out there. Look, yeah, I found it interesting. Tim Cook being on the Nike board for 9 years or so. I think there's a potential that maybe Nike might say, hey, let's not focus on the hardware, which some of the wearable brands are starting to think about. Let's focus on the software, get ourselves a partner that's already really established in the hardware space, and then we can really focus on, integrating with that fitness brand, getting the software really strong and not having to worry about investing so much in the actual physical device that you're wearing on your wrist.
Nike has been a first move partner with Apple at every step of the way. With the old iPod, the little shoe lozenge that you could do your run tracking, that was a Nike partnership, and it was all about kind of using that specifically with Nikes. And then likewise, when the new motion coprocessor went into the iPhone 5S last year, that had a Nike partnership from day one, which was the whole, tracking. It used kind of the Nike Fuel type system, but really they were there before it had been released. So potentially there's already a partnership underway and they've decided that's the way to go.
So what does this mean if you are already an owner of a Nike Fuel Band? Can you expect diminishing support? What do we think is going to happen, Claire?
Look, I think they'll continue to support it, but I mean, you do have to start to question that sunk loss. I mean, are they going to keep going after something if they've got their eye on the future? I think you don't cut and run from your existing customers, because that'd annoy a lot of people. But I think you need to start looking big picture, and it seems to be that less of a focus on hardware for some brands might be the way to go, focusing on the software and rethinking the way they're doing hardware.
Not that long ago, Google announced their version of the Android operating system specifically designed for wearable technology. I think realistically we're talking about watches here. Every bit of vision that we've got, and I think we can show you some at the moment, it looks like it's designed for a watch. And they're basically putting this pitch out to manufacturers and app developers to start building things for an Android wearable device. So Claire, kind of describe for us what it is that Google are flogging here, because what does it look like in the promo video that they've got at the moment?
All right, so basically they've got the OS, they've got the operating system, but they're relying on the hardware manufacturers to sort of bring it to light and create the form that it'll appear on your wrist. So imagine, you might have seen a bit about Google Glass, the device you wear like glasses. You can say, okay, Google, give me directions to the cinema. you can now get that kind of functionality on your wrist. So you could say, okay, Google, what song am I listening to? And put your wristwatch up and have the wristwatch tell you what you're listening to, or maybe get a text alert on your watch and then reply with voice. There are two pieces of hardware out. So we've got the LG G Watch, which sounds a little bit too much like Baby G for my liking, and the Motorola
There's no
Moto.
such thing as sounding too much like Baby G.
You can never sound too much like Baby G. So the LG G Watch, it's supposed to be released in the first half of this year, and it's square. It's kind of futuristic looking. There's a black design. There's a white and champagne sort of rose gold design. They're boasting a water resistant face that's always on, as opposed to something that you have to shake and then get the screen to come on for you. It looks similar to the Galaxy Gear, if people have seen that device. Then you've got the Motorola Moto 360. Now it's a round design. It featured in the promotional videos for the new Google Wear OS, and it looks kind of like a mundane Swiss watch. So I prefer it out of the two. It's quite a sexy design, circular, which is interesting. They've sort of said, hey, we don't have to have a square screen just because it's an electronic device. And that, I think that's the big thing. You can't expect people to wear mini computers and calculator watches on their wrists. They need to be able to say, look, I'm going to go after something that suits my style, and if I'm wearing it all the time, which they're designed to be worn all the time, you want it to look good. And so for that reason, Google sort of alluded to the fact that they were going to be getting fashion brands on board. So Fossil, I think, was mentioned as a watch partner that might be developing something with Android Wear. So that'd be really cool if you could say, I'm going to have a wearable device, but it's a fashionable wearable device.
As Google are putting this pitch out to app developers and manufacturers, what are the sorts of things you would like to see an Android watch do? Let's crystal ball. What would you like to see them do? What's the killer app that would really make you go, I need a smartwatch?
I don't know. I speak to Pebble owners, for example, and they tell me all the amazing stuff that they can do with their Pebble. But it seems very much in that early adopter, very at the forefront in the vanguard of technology, kind of life hacking your watch to do things around the home, like turning on appliances or switching on the music so that when you get home you can listen to whatever band you want to listen to. I would like that sort of capability to be really opened up so it was foolproof. So you could just say, you know what, I want to be able to kind of get my watch doing a whole bunch of things and just make it really streamlined and easy. So whether that's a simple app download or just a really easy user interface that doesn't mean that you have to go through those little life hacks to get the watch working for you.
I'm glad you brought up Pebble though, because Pebble is probably one of the first innovators in this area. They were a big Kickstarter campaign, a lot of fans of Pebble. But one of the things you do notice every time you pick up a Pebble is that it still looks like you're looking at like a Game Boy. Like the actual screen itself is pixelated like it's 1993.
But Pebble Steel.
It still doesn't look that much better though. Like it looks better, but it doesn't look as good as what Google are talking about.
Yeah.
It looks like a diesel knockoff.
Yes.
That's what it looks like.
So surely Pebble are terrified of this, right?
I think that's a big yes, really. I mean, look, the one thing about Pebble, and this is where I think so far when we see what Samsung is doing in particular, what no doubt Apple will do when, if, etc., they do it, and that's that Pebble is open and it tries to play nice with all the different platforms, whereas Samsung's smartwatches are built to work with Samsung phones. Sony is trying to make theirs a little more open. They're not using the Android Wear system, but they are trying to say your Sony watch will work with any other Android phone. And I think that's important that, this is a category of its own now. I don't think it should be consistently treated as something that is tethered to it's not an accessory for the brand you already own. It should be something that is its own thing that can work however you want it to work with the other devices.
An accessory for your life.
Somebody's going to get hired by Google.
Marketing job.
She just got hired by CNet, but you wait, buddy. She'll be hired by Google. So let's go through the roster. We know that Google have put out an Android operating system. Motorola and LG have revealed the look of their first Android Wear smartwatches. You mentioned Samsung Galaxy Gear, which is their smartwatch, but that has to be tethered to a Samsung phone.
Yeah. And it runs on a different system.
Runs on a different system. And then we've got Sony, who apparently are sidestepping Android Wear for their own system. Is that because we've now already got a number of competing systems. We've got a Pebble, we've got Android, we've got Galaxy Gear, and now Sony branching off in their own. Yeah. Good idea, bad idea?
I don't really have a problem with it as long as it knows how to play nice with the other system. In the end, if it's if it's kind of syncing in with apps that are running off your main phone, or that it has its own apps that know how to communicate, through to Android, then it doesn't really matter what operating system it's running. But if Android Wear really is able to get a lot of cool apps that all know how to play nice with each other and are able to do their own thing, well, then that's going to be hard to compete with for the others.
And I also think that we run the risk in the whole category of OS fatigue, there being so many different devices. I mean, Samsung, you mentioned, runs on its own proprietary operating system. They moved away from Android with the Gear 2. So Sony's talking about their LifeLog app and, the smart band, I think it is, and the smart watch. There are so many different devices, and this is an issue for the whole category. I think the way to get this really getting critical mass is making it simple, and I think Google may have that, because even if you're not necessarily in the technology world, you've probably seen Google Glass and it's sort of captivated you. I think leapfrogging off that and going into a wearable device for your wrist that a lot of people could say, hey, I don't have to be an early adopter to pick that up and put it on my wrist. That might be an easy thing for them to take up.
It is interesting because the moment you see what they've kind of got laid out with the Android Wear operating system is it feels like a scaled back version of what they offer with Google Glass and a scaled back version of what they offer with Google Now, which is kind of a predictive app that you can get for Android phones and also iOS phones, which basically it congeals your life together. It tells you, you've got an appointment coming here because it's reading it off your calendar. It kind of reads your emails. It's basically a personal assistant run by the
As
Skynet.
the blood of your life flows through, it congeals it all together.
The Skynet, that is.
Yeah,
Google.
at once terrifying and also really awesome. Like I'm mortified by this, but at the same time, I'm just so lazy and confused by things easily. So if my watch can tell me what to do, I'll take it.
But this is the thing, though, because Google Now, in the context of a phone, and I've turned it on like 5 or 6 times and been like, this is a great idea, I'm never using it. Whereas if it was something present on my wrist, it feels like it's in that nice space where you would actually use it, and it's not as creepy as it would be if it was attached to your face in the form of Google Glass.
And that's what everyone's saying. They're saying, you don't have to reach out to get it out of your pocket, to get it out of your bag, if it's somewhere else in the car, It's just a matter of just looking at your watch like we've done for centuries. So it's just a really easy process, and it's, you don't have to look like a total crazy walking around the streets of San Francisco, getting beaten up because you wear glass.
So where are we going to be in a year's time, do you think? Is there going to be, are Apple going to make that announcement in the next 12 months? They are having a smartphone. Is that going to happen?
Yeah.
And what's it going to look like?
But
why don't you know?
Yeah. I think it's one of this is absolutely going to be a huge year because we will see how many of these companies do partner with Android Wear. I think there's some rumors that, Sony might decide to do a separate Android Wear device, and do their own thing. I think there's going to be a lot of movement this year. And, by this time next year, I think we will see some kind of a wearable Apple device. It won't necessarily be a watch. I think that's kind of one of those things. It could, who knows what it could be, but we do know that, Apple's been hiring medical experts and all kinds of people, from the fashion industry, from the jewelry industry, these kinds of medical imaging or medical reporting type specialists. They bought companies that have technologies that can do tracking, not just of, say, your heart rate, but also like heart variability, blood sugar levels, oxygen levels, all these kinds of things. That actually means it's not then just something that's about running a few apps on your wrist. It's then actually a completely different sort of a wearable that has a very specific reason for being worn. So that could again change the game if those things are even real. But I think the next 12 months is going to be huge for this industry.
And seeing it shift from cool to necessary, where people feel like if it's a blood sugar measurer, something like that becomes a necessary addition to your life, not just like, how many steps have I walked today? Should aim for more or less. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. What is the wearable technology you are most excited about seeing in 2014? Let us know in the comment section down below here on YouTube. And while you're down there, you can find links to the whole audio episode of the show. We're also examining the world of bug bounties and HBB TV. Just what the hell is that? Well, you'll just have to download the whole show. There should be a link to the iTunes account, also the MP3 and SoundCloud. And thank you for watching another slice of Download This Show right here on RNTV.
If Heartbleed has shown us nothing else, it's highlighted how poorly most companies' back-end systems are protected.